off today's webinar. We'll go ahead and kick off today's webinar in just a couple of seconds here while we allow for a couple more folks to join us. Alrighty, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Manuela Peralta. I am the Senior Implementation Specialist here at ClassWallet. And on the call today, we also have a couple of my colleagues from ClassWallet here to assist with any questions and to host the Q&A session at the end. And then we also have a member of the Idaho State Board of Education to answer any programmatic questions if needed. Okay. For today's webinar, we are going to be focusing on the education service providers, also known as vendors, for the Idaho Empowering Parents program. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available shortly after. And at the end of the presentation, we will have some time for some questions and answers. If you do have any questions as we're going through the presentation, please feel free to drop that on the Q&A box, either at the bottom or top of your screen, depending on your Zoom settings, and we'll make sure to address those either as we go along on the presentation or at the end. So a brief agenda as to what we'll go over today. We'll do a brief program overview. We'll go over the family eligibility and application. We'll also go over the application for the education service providers and the requirements that go along with the application. We'll review some approved expenses, how to register on the ClassWallet platform. We'll go review some invoice guidelines, how you'll go about receiving payments, and just some general information. So a brief program overview. So what is the purpose of the Empowering Parents program? So the Empowering Parents program provides eligible families with grant funds for use towards eligible education products and services to help students recover from learning loss. Each approved student will receive $1,000 with a cap of $3,000 per family. And it may be that some of you on this call are already familiar with the Empowering Parents program, so you may already be ahead. Okay. Approved families will receive their funds through ClassWallet's electronic payment platform beginning in late November of this year. And using the ClassWallet's digital wallet, program participants can use their funds to pay for approved expenses and make approved educational purchases through approved providers. So family eligibility and what that application will look like. So students that are in ages between 5 and 8 are eligible for this program, whether they attend a public school, a private school, or are homeschooled. Okay. The Idaho law does require income eligibility based on the parent or guardian's AGI for the prior year as verified by the Idaho Tax Commission. And the family application will open up this month and will close on April 7th of next year or until funds exhaust, whichever comes first. And then as I mentioned earlier, approved families will be able to access their ClassWallet digital wallet and start issuing payments to approved education service providers in late November. So all participating education vendor and service providers, or you may also hear me refer them as ESPs or vendors or direct pay vendors. Those are all the same. you must all be approved and agree to follow program rules and guidelines in order to participate in the program and be eligible to receive payments from approved families. Okay. The application will open today, and it's already opened actually, and the link to the application will be dropped on the chat here if it hasn't been already, and it'll remain open throughout the upcoming year. The application will also be made available on the Empowering Parents Program website under the vendor section. If you go on the program website, you may not see it just yet, but the website will be updated shortly after this webinar to reflect the application and some information that will be valuable to you in your ClassWallet platform. Okay. So some requirements needed to be followed by education service providers. So you must not unlawfully discriminate on the basis of race, color, or national origin. Um, you may be required to provide evidence of current state licensure. You must attest to a drug-free workplace. And you must also attest to criminal background checks on employees and exclude from employment anyone who may not be permitted by the state law to work in a school, who might reasonably pose a threat to the safety of students, or is listed on a federal, state, or other central child abuse registry. And then as a service provider, you will also be required to provide the parents with a receipt or invoice for all qualifying expenses and services provided to the students. And we'll review what that invoice should look like in just a couple of minutes. So some approved expenses, and to my understanding, this has not changed since last year. So if you did participate in the program last year, this information should be familiar to you. So computer hardwares, internet access, or technological devices are considered approved expenses, such as laptops, headphones, speakers, cameras, printers, and VR headsets. Textbooks, curriculum, and other instructional materials are also approved. So anything in regards to textbooks, K-12 curriculum or books, educational applications, dictionaries, and so on. Fees for national standardized assessments such as the SAT, ACT, AP, or IB tests will also be eligible for approval, as well as therapies such as speech, occupational, physical, behavioral, audiology, vision, and dental therapies. So if you are a provider that provides any of these, you can go ahead and apply. Some other approved expenses also include educational programs offered for a fee or pursuant to contract by a school district, a public charter school, or a career technical education program to non-public students. Okay. And those fees may include athletic fees for school, driver's education fees, any fees related to curriculum, including art or CTE fees, and graduation fees. Registration fees and required materials for education camps will also be approved. So that includes tuition, technology, textbook, and curriculum fees, and instructional materials for camps and extracurricular classes. That also does include registration fees and out-of-state camps accredited by the American Camp Association. We also have non-technological education equipment such as backpacks, computer cases, timers, planners, calculators. Those items would be considered approved or eligible to be approved. as well as physical education equipment, gear, uniforms, or pay-to-play fees required for participation in any organized physical education activity, such as sports gear, sports competition fees, weights, and weights benches. And then lastly, we also have some musical instruments as well as tutoring services that will be eligible to be approved, and costumes and uniforms. A complete list of allowable expenses can be found linked on this presentation and can also be found, we can drop a link here to those allowable expenses. Okay. So the class wallet registration and linking of your bank account. So this process will begin only if your application is approved. Okay. If your application is not approved, you will not go through this process. Okay. So once your application has been approved, you will receive an email notifying you of the approval. And then separately, you will receive another email with a link to register in the Class Wallet platform. That link will come from help@classwallet.com, and that link will be unique to the email address provided on the time of the application. So it is important that that the email address entered on your application is for someone that has the ability to create their Class Wallet account and go through the process that we'll outline in the next couple of slides. So once you click that link, you'll see a page that has what it looks like here on the right, which is the Class Wallet homepage for vendors, or login page rather. You'll click on where it says create account, and then you'll be routed over to a couple of steps that you'll need to complete in order to actually register and create your Class Wallet account. Okay. The first step would be to provide some basic information about your company or your organization, such as company name, any website if you do have one, and the address. Then you'll be routed over to read and review the legal terms and conditions. Once you've reviewed that and read and accepted the terms and conditions, you'll be able to go ahead and proceed with entering your login information. Okay. That login information, as I said, the first and last name, you'll be able to enter the first and last name. The email address you will not be able to modify. That email address will be tied to the email address on the application. And then you can go ahead and review and submit your registration. After you've already registered your Class Wallet vendor account, you will be required to link your bank account. And this bank account is the one that should be receiving payments for the services that are offered to program participants. So you'll click on the link account button, and then you'll be required to enter some basic bank account information, such as your account number, the routing number, the bank name, the name on the account, the display or nickname for your bank. Then you'll be routed over to complete a W-9 form. And once you've done those two things, you'll be able to go ahead and finish the bank account registration, which would just entail of those couple of steps. We do have a dedicated knowledge base article on how you can go ahead and link your bank account, and that is available on the Class Wallet knowledge base. An important thing to note for direct pay vendors or service providers for this program, all payments will be subject to a 2% processing fee. and that processing fee does apply to the entire payment amount and should not be passed along to the family. So for example, let's say I am a student and I received 10 tutoring sessions that amounted to a total of $1,000. The invoice that will be uploaded, if all the services are in one invoice, will be for $1,000. Then that family, what they'll do is they'll upload that invoice into their Class Wallet account. They'll enter the payment amount of $1,000 and they'll see a 2% fee applied to that payment. That 2% fee will be deducted from the payment that you receive as an approved service provider. So your settlement amount on your linked bank account will be $980. So the invoices and what that should look like in order to abide by the guidelines and just to avoid for the parents or family to go back and request an updated invoice. So as I did mention, all providers are required to provide a invoice or supporting documentation to program participants because in order to initiate a payment to you as a provider in the Class Wallet platform, families will be required to upload an invoice. So this invoice can either be in PDF, JPEG, or PNG file format. And here to the right, we have an example of what that invoice should look like, or at least the elements that it should contain. Okay. So it should have the vendor name. So this would be the company name, including the address. It should list or it should have the parent name. So here we have on this example who the parent was and who the invoice was issued to. And then you should list the student names. So in this example, we have two students. We have John Smith and Josh Smith that have received services for the same vendor under the same parent. Okay. So those are just itemized line items on the invoice. So you can have multiple students in one invoice. They just need to be itemized. So it's recorded which students received payments or received services. We should also include the date of the invoice and the date of the service. So for this example, we have the invoice date, and then also we have on the itemized list, we have when the service was rendered or when it will be rendered. It should also include what the payment is for. So whether this is for therapy, for tutoring, for a camp, that should be included on the itemized list. And then lastly, the total amount due. So again, these elements are required to be in the invoice provided to parents or families so that they can upload and initiate a payment to you as an approved provider. Some additional guidelines to be aware of. The invoice to the families must be made out to the parent name and listing each student that receives services in sub-bullets. So basically what we just went over. There will be no handwritten documents that will be accepted. And payments for services can be made prior to this to the service or paid after the service has been rendered. Okay. However, only invoices for services provided on or after October 22nd, 2024 will be approved. Any payments or for services that were provided before October 22nd will not be eligible for approval. And what this first sentence means here is that as a service provider, you can invoice a parent or a family for a service that has not yet been rendered. Okay? And then the family can go ahead and upload that invoice. And if the payment is approved, then you'll receive your payment. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to wait until the service has been rendered to provide the invoice to the family. Okay. So now we'll go over how you'll receive payments and how families will be able to locate you as a provider in the ClassWallet platform. So in ClassWallet, approved providers are called or known as direct pay vendors. And because direct pay is just the module and the name of the tool utilized in order to pay vendors. Okay. So approved educational service providers can be found when families click on this pay vendor button on their ClassWallet account. Keep in mind, families will not have their ClassWallet accounts until late November 2024. So even if you are approved this month or early on next month, families will not be able to see you on the ClassWallet platform until their account has been created and funded. So here we've have a little snippet as to what the family experience will look like. So basically, they'll log into their ClassWallet account. They'll be able to see their available balance. Once they click on that pay vendor option, they'll be able to see the full list of approved providers that are specific to the Empowering Parents program. Once they locate you on that list, they'll be able to select in through the ClassWallet platform, and then upload that invoice that was provided, and then just enter a couple additional details, and they'll be able to submit the payment. Keep in mind, this payment and this transaction does go through an approval process. Okay? So just because they initiated the payment does not mean that the payment will be approved. It does need to follow programmatic guidelines, one of them being following those invoice guidelines. And then, of course, the transaction needs to just be checked and validated to confirm that the service that was rendered can actually be paid with Empowering Parents funds. Okay, so shipping orders as a direct pay vendor. Okay, so you may be a direct pay vendor or a service provider that offers physical goods, so you may need to ship orders directly to families. And this is completely okay. You will have the option to choose how you would like to ship orders to families, and also if you would like the order shipped before or after the payment is approved. However, the shipping of the orders will happen outside of the ClassWallet system. So through ClassWallet, what you would be doing is just receiving your payments for the services that were rendered or the products that were provided or that will be provided or that will be rendered. Okay. But it will be up to you as a service provider to choose how you would like to ship those orders if you are a provider that this applies to. Okay. So some other important information. So in ClassWallet, we have direct pay vendors. So if you would be considered a direct pay vendor if you go through the application process that was linked on the chat and you are approved. So if you are approved through that application and you go through that setup process, you will be known as a direct pay provider or a direct pay vendor. Okay. And then we also have a e-commerce marketplace. So these are two different things in ClassWallet. So a direct pay provider offers service providers the fastest way to join the program and to connect with families. It's basically a closed loop system that allows for families to submit a direct payment to approved service providers for goods and services. Now, the e-commerce marketplace does offer the ability for e-commerce vendors to integrate directly with ClassWallet. So this allows families to see available items directly through their Class Wallet account. Okay. So if you are interested in becoming a marketplace vendors, there are certain criteria that you need to meet. So if you are interested in that, just reach out to our support team at help@classwallet.com to express your interest, and then our team will follow up with a couple of follow-up questions to ensure the capabilities of integrating in the Class Wallet marketplace. It is important to note as well, for direct pay providers, there is that 2% processing fee. Okay. However, for marketplace vendors, this fee does tend to vary, and it is typically not 2%. So those are just a couple of the follow-up items and things that will need to be sorted in order to become a marketplace vendor in Class Wallet. So for your vendor settings and profile, so once you've already registered your Class Wallet vendor account and you've linked your bank account, you also do have the ability to view your vendor profile and edit, your website if needed, and enter a description of the services that you offer. So we do highly recommend that you use this descriptions tool and feature in your Class Wallet account so that families can have a better understanding of what product or services it is that you provide or that your company offers. And that description will be visible to families. And then you can also update your business and billing address and choose whether or not you want that address visible to users. As a service provider, you also do have a user management feature in your Class Wallet vendor account. And this feature allows you to add any other additional administrators or users that are part of your company or part of your organization that should have access to a Class Wallet vendor account. And basically, administrators will have access to invite other users and administrators. They'll be able to update the linked bank account for payments and also manage vendor profile information. And then if you would like to invite someone on the user role, you can view payment, they can just view payment reports and manage credentials. So approved payments. So what I alluded to earlier, that payments will go through an approval process. So this is after that transaction has already gone through that approval process and has been approved. Okay. So when a payment for a transaction that was submitted by a family is approved, you as a vendor or provider will receive an email confirmation from Class Wallet letting you know that this payment has been approved. This email will contain a couple pieces of information, and it will also have a link that directs you over to your vendor account, but that link does expire in 7 days. However, you do have a permanent record in your Class Wallet vendor account, and that is called a payment report. So you'll be able to log into your Class Wallet vendor account and view that payment report to view all the transactions that have been approved for your specific company or organization. You will not have visibility to see any payments that have just been submitted by families. You'll only have visibility to view once those payments have been approved. Okay. And then in that report, you'll see a transaction ID number. And basically, this is a ID number that you can tie back to your linked bank account or your banking, the bank that you used in order to locate that payment if needed. And then you'll also see the status, and we'll go over that in just a minute. and the date that the transaction was last updated. Okay. As I mentioned, upon approval of the payment, the provider or the vendor will receive confirmation along with any information that was uploaded. And once that payment is approved, you will see those funds settle into your linked bank account within 2 to 10 business days. And you'll see payments can be in 4 different statuses. The first one being queued. So if you see a payment on this status, it means that the transaction has been approved and is being readied for processing. If you see it on the initiated status, that means that the transaction has been sent to our processor. If you see it on processing, that means that the funds are moving between accounts. So it's moving from the family account to our banking partner into your linked bank account. And then once you see it in settled, that means that you will see that deposit in your bank account. And a couple things to remember, that all purchases will be reviewed by the program administrators to ensure compliance with Idaho Empowering Parents Program guidelines. And once that payment is approved, the funds will settle into your linked bank account within 2 to 10 business days. Now, if the payment is rejected, that parent does receive an email notification with the details of the rejection, and all those funds will be credited back to the parent's class wallet account so that they can reuse them. A provider can be removed from the program for failing to comply with program guidelines and will be required to certify that they continue to comply with program guidelines in order to continue serving the families for the Empowering Parents program. So, as I mentioned earlier, payments for services that have not yet been rendered are eligible to be approved through the end of the current quarter. Okay. So services that have already been rendered will be approved for the current academic year. Okay. And then just some general information about our security. Here at Class Wallet, we do have a dedicated team that focuses solely on security, and that is our #1 priority here at Class Wallet. We do have a knowledge base article dedicated for the security measures that Class Wallet has in place. So if you do want to read more information about that, I highly encourage you to browse through our knowledge base. Just type in the keyword security, and you'll be able to find more information there. Okay. And then lastly, we have our Class Wallet support team here to assist you with any questions that you may have in regards to your Class Wallet registration, updating your bank account information, and also that payment status. Okay. You have 3 ways to contact our customer support team. You can start a live chat through your Class Wallet vendor account, or you can also view the knowledge base. You can email our team at help@classwallet.com, or you can call us at the number listed here. Our hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Mountain Time. And then for any programmatic questions, you feel free to contact the Empowering Parents program dedicated email at empoweringparents@edu.idaho.gov. Okay, and now we'll open up the floor to questions. I see some did come in, and Scott will be helping me facilitate this. So go ahead, Scott.
That's great. Yes, thank you, Manuela. Great job as always. So we do have some really good questions here, guys, and I think if we just reiterate some of the things that were outlined in the slide deck, that'd be useful. Before I dive too far into that, though, just want to reiterate a couple of notes that were included in the webinar chat for everybody. Please be assured that the content that you all are seeing here today is being recorded. It'll get posted out to the Empowering Parents website along with a copy of the slide deck that we're using here today. That provider application is live, right? So please go out there and walk through those workflows. Let us know if you have any clarifying questions. Be sure to bookmark that Empowering Parents Program website. The vendor tab is where you guys are going to see updates reflected as we work through those updates with Idaho. So keep an eye out there. Manuela, we do have a series of good questions here. Can we go back to the slide associated with invoice requirements? And we had a specific question associated with whether or not an email confirmation would suffice as an invoice. Can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Of course. So, as long as it contains all the information as outlined on this invoice and that the parent can go ahead and download it either as a PDF, a PNG, or a JPEG, I would say that would be enough as long as it contains these pieces of information.
Very good. I just want to pause there for just a moment here so folks can absorb what those invoice requirements are. I know that'll be really, really valuable for our providers. We did also have a couple of questions associated with the process whereby goods can be purchased in person. So can you kind of walk us through that scenario where we've got a brick and mortar bookshop, for example, right? And that provider wants to offer families the opportunity to purchase a book in person.
Yep, absolutely. So if you do fall under that scenario, then you'll be able to first provide the family with an invoice or a receipt that has, again, this information. And then it will be up to you whether you would like to give the goods or the products to the families before you've received payment for it in the Class Wallet platform, or if you would like to wait until you received payments in through the Class Wallet platform for that for those goods or products. Again, it will be up to the family to actually initiate the process of submitting a payment to you through their Class Wallet platform in order for you to actually receive that payment. And before that, it does need to go through that approval process. So just keep that in mind while you are making the decision and creating the process of whether or not you would like to allow to provide those goods and products before you receive the payment or afterwards. But that process can be defined, should be defined by you as a provider.
Very good, thank you. I'm making some assumptions on this next one here. I'm not sure that I'm interpreting the question exactly right, but I think it boils down to, so you talked a little bit, Manuela, about the registration process in the Class Wallet platform itself and some of the key information that providers can include in the Class Wallet platform. If they wanted to go and edit something, for example, from their vendor profile, how quickly would those changes be visible to account holder families?
So that is almost instantaneous. So if you do update the description or your company name or display name, those updates are instantaneous. It may take a couple of minutes or a quick refresh, but the updates are visible to the families right after you make the changes.
Very good, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about, hey, let's say these providers have multiple transactions approved from different account holder families. Manuela, can you speak to how those transactions get deposited separately, or are they consolidated?
Yes. So I'll go back to this payment report. So my understanding is that those payments are it won't be consolidated. It'll be a separate payment for each one that was submitted. However, if you can just send a follow-up question to our support team just to make sure that that is indeed the case. And again, you will have that transaction ID number tied to every single transaction on your payment report. So you'll be able to tie those back that way as well.
Very good, thank you. Can you speak again, Manuela? So I believe what we learned today, right, is that vendors are only going to have insight into approved transactions.
Yes.
And so vendors, providers will not be notified when a payment is rejected, correct?
Correct. Yep. You won't be notified if a payment is submitted, and you will not be notified if a payment is rejected. You'll only be notified when a payment is approved.
And we have a question in here associated with an invoice template. That is not something that is available at this point, for what it's worth. We do have a couple examples embedded in the slide deck, so please be mindful of that. Manuela, can you speak in kind of generalized terms associated with, hey, let's offer up an example of who typically operates in ClassWallet's marketplace compared with the type of provider that typically operates within the direct pay tile.
Of course. So let me go to that slide where we talk about direct pay versus marketplace. So a direct pay provider would be mostly those providers that maybe don't have an e-commerce website or that are unable to integrate within our marketplace based on the criteria from our vendor management team. A direct pay provider is also could be like those mom and pop shops or any like tutoring. If you're an individual that provides tutoring and you don't have a company or any website that has those tutoring services, those would be more on the direct pay provider realm. For a marketplace vendor, those are more like Best Buy, Staples, Office Max, Michaels. So those stores that do have an e-commerce experience that is already set up and established as their individual company and then can be integrated based on our guidelines into the marketplace.
Very helpful, thank you. Also seeing a couple questions in here associated with providers who already have a ClassWallet account. Can we offer them some guidance in terms of how they can go about getting connected, so to speak, with the Empowering Parents program?
Yes, so that's a great question. So if you currently do have a ClassWallet account and you may be receiving payments for students that are within other programs, then you will still have to go through that application process to make sure that you are approved to participate and receive payments for this specific program. If you do fall under that scenario, I highly encourage you to do your application under the same email address that your current ClassWallet account is set up under. Unless you would like someone else to own that account, or unless you have the same banking information, that will affect it as well. So that would be my recommendation, is to just apply with the same email address that is linked to your current ClassWallet account.
Thank you, Manuela. Let me just keep reading through some of these. So again, a couple of clarifying questions tied to the kind of the mechanics around becoming established in the marketplace. On that front, guys, certainly encourage you to reach out to that help@classwallet.com email address. That'll get you connected with ClassWallet's vendor management team, who will be able to initiate discussions with you guys about the process involved in becoming established in the marketplace. It is more complex, right, when compared with entering into the direct pay tile. So please be mindful of that. Sorry, guys, just reading through these. Give me a couple more minutes here.
So I have, let's see. Sorry, I saw a question and I had lost it. So, okay, yes. How do families initiate the invoice request from the direct pay vendors? Do vendors receive an email to request? So, families will not initiate or, I'm sorry, families will not request a invoice through the ClassWallet platform. It will be up to the family to notify you as the vendor, hey, I need an invoice for the services that you provided. Or as the vendor and the service provider, if you know that you are providing services to an Empowering Parents program participant, you know that they're going to need an invoice, so you can go ahead and just issue the invoice at the time that the service is requested or after the service is rendered, however you choose.
Manuela, can you talk through the mechanics of a scenario where a transaction is approved, but then the customer wishes to cancel said transaction before the payment is actually processed? Do they have an opportunity to intervene in that scenario?
Yes, so we actually do have a knowledge base article also dedicated on how to handle refunds as a provider. But basically, if the payment has not already been transferred over to the provider, but it's already been approved, Class Wallet has a very small window to cancel that payment from going through the provider. And I wouldn't rely on that small window in order to actually stop the payment. So if that is the case and maybe you already received the payment or maybe the payment is already too far along in the process for Class Wallet to stop the payment, then you will have the ability to return the funds to Class Wallet. Scott, thank you. Scott just dropped the knowledge base on the chat here. So you'll be able to just return those funds to our finance team in Class Wallet. Class Wallet will then refund that corresponding order number to the family, and the family will have instant access to their funds once the refund has been processed.
Manuela, can we touch on that description, the vendor description again, just real quick here, guys? Um, Want to make sure you folks recognize, you don't necessarily have to list every single thing that you offer, right? But it may be worth, uh, you know, entering enough there just to encourage families to reach out to you. Let's say, for example, you offer K through 6 tutoring in all subjects, right? You don't necessarily have to.
I think maybe Scott's audio got cut off there, but I think where he was going through with that is that basically the description is something that families will have visibility onto. So you don't have to be super descriptive, right, and enter the your prices or anything on this description. You can go ahead and, enter, I'm tutoring service for grades K through 6th grade, for example, and I also offer these other services. So you can keep it as vague or as descriptive as you choose, but families do have visibility onto this, and it's a great way to connect with families. That way they know what it is exactly that you offer.
Thanks for the assist there, Manuel. That was a tough time for my headset to just turn off on its own. Thank you. That's exactly what I was driving at. Oh, an approved goods and services list is a question that we have out there. That's another item here that I'll go ahead and drop into the chat. Idaho has put together a great eligible products and services document that I think would be beneficial for everybody to get their hands on. So I'll move that over into the chat now.
So for service providers, through direct pay, the only fee is that 2% processing fee. And again, that is only for direct pay, not for the marketplace.
Manuela, in one of the slides, we alluded to a link that expires after 7 days. Can we circle back to that one and just reiterate what it is that's actually expiring and how our providers can go about finding that information after that
Yeah.
7 day period? Yeah.
Yes. So the link that expires is the link to go ahead and access your Class Wallet account through that email, basically. So that email will have details on the order that was approved. So you'll be able to just click the link and view the order details. However, you will have the ability to view the payment report, which will have the same exact information through your Class Wallet account, and that report will be available to you permanently on your Class Wallet account.
We've got an interesting question in here associated with online providers such as Etsy. Um, can you speak? So Etsy won't be included in Class Wallet's marketplace. They are not going to be registered, right, as a direct pay provider. So that particular provider really wouldn't have an opportunity to transact in the Class Wallet platform. I hope that's a sufficient answer, but if not, please do follow back up in that Q&A widget. Again, folks, if you're interested in learning more about becoming a marketplace provider, certainly encourage you to reach out to help@classwallet.com. There are full transparency, right? There are some additional requirements and process steps that will have to be completed um, in order to operate in that tile, so to speak, as opposed to the direct pay uh, flow that we're alluding to here today. The path of least resistance will be for you guys to go out to the provider application, fill that out, submit that to us for review and approval, and then you can register as a direct pay provider. Manuela, can you revisit so we do have an opportunity here for um, transactions to be approved before or after services are rendered. Can we just speak through that again and clarify that a little bit more, please?
Yes. Okay, so let's say I'll set it up as an example. So let's say I am a tutor and I provided a service to a student, and I am going to provide and continue to provide a service to a student through the end of the year 2024. All those services and all those sessions can be entered in one invoice. So I can put, November week 1, tutoring session 1 complete. November week 2, tutoring session 2, the amount complete. And then continue doing that through the last session of the end of December. Then it's not necessarily required for those services to have already been rendered for the payment to be approved. So let's say the family uploads that invoice in the middle of November, and that invoice has services included that will happen in December. That invoice will still be allowed to be approved. So that means that you will receive payment if that payment is approved for those services that will happen in December. So they necessarily didn't happen yet, but they're still being approved and you're getting paid for them. Um, and don't necessarily have to wait until December that the service has been rendered.
Very good. Thank you. We've got about 5 minutes left of our session here today, and we've got some anxious folks. I'm glad to see we've got some folks confirming, hey, I've already applied. Can we just talk a little bit to the anticipated timeline for review and approval of these providers?
Yes. So you will all vendor applications will be actioned within 14 days of submission. So after within those 14 days, you will receive an email notification letting you know whether it has been approved or rejected, or if any other additional information is needed from you to provide in order to action the application accordingly.
And then um, again, folks excited to participate and be service providers for families in Idaho. There's a few questions here associated with being involved in both the direct pay and marketplace tiles within the Class Wallet platform. That's not typical, right? Usually one or the other. Not something where you're doing both there. Manuela, anything else to add there?
Yeah. I will say there are some cases where you can be both. You just need to go through both processes. Um, Again, maybe it's not the most common thing we see, but it's definitely a possibility if you do qualify to be both.
Very good. Well, guys, we will collect all of the unanswered questions here that have been submitted, and we'll partner with Idaho to produce information to help address those questions. Like I said before, today's content, as well as a recording of this webinar, will get posted out to that Empowering Parents program website, likely before the end of this week. So please keep an eye out there. Um, Greatly appreciate your time and participation in the program. I know it's change can be difficult, but we're excited to be good partners here with you and help navigate this change. Um, so want to sincerely thank you all for your time and attention today.
Awesome, Scott. Well, thank you so much for leading us through that Q&A session. I have here on the screen just our support information, just in case you do want to send any follow-up questions, and along with the support hours there. But I do want to extend my gratitude to the Idaho State Board of Education for their partnership, and then also for all of you for participating in today's webinar and submitting all those great questions. We look forward to continuing to work with you and help upstand the Empowering Parents program in Class Wallet. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.